You know, it's funny. Some of the best ideas start from the most random conversations. But every once in a while, a simple chat about a fun little project just completely spirals out of control into a deep dive on physics, engineering, and, well, let's just say some very questionable legal defense theories. So let's get into how we ended up there.
It all kicked off with this one simple sentence. Nothing grand, no big master plan, just a casual comment about a little project that would end up taking us on a wild ride through science, mechanics, and then, yeah, things got a little weird.
So, what was this project all about? Well, it started, like so many great Australian ideas do, with a piece of candy.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, these are Jaffas. You've got a chocolate orange center with this hard candy shell. But the most important part for our story, the key detail, is their size. They're a nice, consistent 15 millimeters, which it turns out is perfect for ammunition.
So the goal was beautifully simple. Build a mini version of a baseball pitching machine. But instead of baseballs, you're launching Jaffas. A fun, sweet little gadget, right? The question is, how do you actually make it work?
And this is where the fun idea smacks right into the cold, hard laws of physics. See, it's not enough to just throw a Jaffa. You have to do it with some kind of precision.
Which brings us to the main engineering puzzle. If you just fire a small, round thing out of a launcher, it's going to wobble all over the place, totally unpredictable. So how do you fix that? How do you stabilize it? Well, the solution is actually a pretty fascinating bit of aerodynamics.
The secret sauce here is something called the Magnus effect. Basically, if you put backspin on the Jaffa as you launch it, you create a pressure difference in the air moving around it. That generates lift, and this is the crucial part, it stabilizes the flight path, so it travels in a nice, predictable arc.
And you can see just how big a difference this makes. Without backspin, you just have a wobbly, unpredictable mess that goes nowhere. But with backspin, you get a stable, accurate flight with way more range. So backspin isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely essential for this thing to actually work.
So how do you make that backspin happen? The plan was pretty clever. You use two wheels standing vertically, and you spin them at the same speed. But, and here's the trick, you offset them just a little bit. That offset means one part of the Jaffa gets more grip, which creates the spin. The wheels themselves needed to be a soft, grippy rubber, and the whole thing would be fed by Jaffas just dropping down from a canister. Simple, but really effective. Okay, so with the concept pretty much nailed down, it was time to stop theorizing and start crunching some numbers. What's it actually going to take to get this machine to perform?
And the performance goal was pretty ambitious. We're not talking about a little desktop toy here. The target range was 50 meters. That's more than half a football field.
Hitting something from 50 meters away means you need a very specific launch speed. So the next logical question was, just how fast does a little piece of candy need to fly to go that far? Turns out, the answer is about 25 kilometers an hour. That's around 15 miles per hour. For a tiny piece of candy, that is really moving. And that single number is what dictates all the specs for the motor that's going to power this whole thing. So the final specs started to take shape. For power, an 18-volt tool battery, because they're easy to find. For speed, you need a motor that could do 300 to 500 RPM to hit that target velocity. And of course, enough torque so it's consistent. But just to be on the safe side, the decision was made to get a beefier motor, one that could go up to 1,000 RPM, just for a little extra headroom. A totally sound engineering choice. And that really should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. Because just as all the technical details were falling into place, the entire purpose of the project took a wild, completely unexpected turn. It went from being a fun hobby to something a lot more practical.
And this was the question that changed everything. The project suddenly pivoted from a candy cannon to a potential home defense system.
Now, you have to understand the reasoning here. The thinking was, look, I'm in Australia, we don't have guns, but what if someone breaks in with something like a machete? Could a high-speed Jaffa Launcher actually be a deterrent? It's a bizarre question, I know, but it came with an even more bizarre legal strategy.
So this was the proposed cover story. Step 1, you get broken into. Step 2, you defend yourself with a Jaffa Launcher. Step 3, you tell the police, oh, I just threw the Jaffa, particularly hard. And the cornerstone of your legal defense? A Jaffa is definitely less of a weapon than a machete. I mean, flawless logic, right?
But in the end, the whole wild scenario kind of boiled down to this.
Forget the legal side of it for a second. Just imagine the headline. It's so absurd, it's so memorable, and it just perfectly captures the dark humor of where this whole project ended up.
So after this wonderfully weird journey, what's the actual takeaway here? It's about a lot more than just candy or questionable self-defense tactics.
This quote from the original conversation, it really just sums the whole thing up perfectly. The entire exercise from start to finish was a masterclass in creative thinking and just letting your mind wander down some really unconventional paths. And that's the creative spiral right there in action. It all started with a simple piece of candy. That led to thinking about physics and engineering, which then morphed into this absurd home defense plan. And that, in the end, led to a little reflection on imagination itself. It just goes to show how any small starting point can bloom into something incredibly complex and fascinating.
And that really just leaves us with one final question for you. What's that quirky, maybe slightly ridiculous idea that you've had? The one that, if you just opened your mind to it a little bit, could spiral into something you never expected, something brilliant. What's your Jaffa Launcher?